Bessie Amelia Head was born on the 6th of July in 1937, KwaZulu-Natal, to a white woman and a black man in Apartheid, South Africa. Interracial relationships between whites and non-whites were prohibited. Her mother came from a wealthy family and suffered from mental illnesses. Not much is known about her father, but it is speculated that he worked for her mother's family. Shortly after birth, Bessie was placed with a white foster family on the presumption that she was white. After her foster parents discovered that she was not white, they returned her to the authorities, who then placed her with a colored family. Nellie and George Heathcote were a poor colored family who went on to raise Bessie Head as their own. When her foster father unexpectedly died in 1950, Bessie was declared a ward of the state and sent to St. Monica's Home for Colored Girls, an orphanage in Durban. In the same year, she enrolled in Umbilo Road High School, where she completed her junior certificate and soon after started her teacher training. In 1956, she was awarded a provincial teacher training certificate and started working as a primary school teacher. In 1958, she however resigned as a teacher and moved to Cape Town in the hopes of becoming a journalist. She became a reporter for the Golden City Post, a sister publication of the popular Drum. In 1959, she moved to Johannesburg and began working on another one of Drum's sister publications, Home Post. She had 2 weekly columns that quickly gained popularity with the magazine's readership. Due to the nature of her reporting, she began to take an interest in politics. She joined the Pan-African Congress, PSC, during the anti-pass laws campaign in 1960. It was around this time that the Sharpeville massacre occurred, in which the police opened fire on a crowd of approximately 5,000 people who were protesting pass laws and ended up killing 91 and injuring 238. Pass laws were a system of internal passports that served to restrict the movement of non-whites in South Africa, particularly its black population. After the events of the Sharpeville massacre, black political parties were banned and many activists were arrested, including Bessie Head. She was later released but became disillusioned with the political scene and began to show signs of mental distress. After spending some time in hospital, she moved back to Cape Town, where she began to work on her own newsletter, The Citizen. She also published her first story in the journal, The New African. In 1961, she met Harold Head, a journalist that shared similar interests. They fell in love and got married a few weeks later. A year later, their only son, Howard Rex Head, was born. During this time, she began working on her first novel, The Cardinals, which was published posthumously. The marriage began deteriorating, and in 1963, she left Harold and moved in with her mother-in-law. But by 1964, she had left her mother-in-law's home and applied for a teaching job in Sekedi Memorial Primary School in Serowe, Botswana. Her application was accepted, but her passport was denied. She was left with no option but to acquire one-way exit visas, taking her son with her. She never came back to South Africa. She had left for good. She settled in Serowe, Botswana, and taught at the school for 1 year, 1964 to 1965. She was, however, forced to abandon her teaching duties after receiving unwanted sexual attention from the school's headmaster. She began to live in absolute poverty, save from some financial help that she received from her friends back in Cape Town and London. In 1966, she took up residence and sought employment in the cooperative Pamangwato Development Association farm in Radisele. She learned how to cultivate arid land, skills she got from Vernon Gibbert, an agriculturalist running an experimental farm. These skills and the landscape provided her material for her first published novel, When Rain Clouds Gather. After a few months of living in the cooperative farm, she moved to Palapye and found work as a typist. Her story, A Woman from America, was published in the United Kingdom. She was, however, fired from her typist job after a few months and had to once again find a place to live. She became a refugee and was resettled in a refugee camp in Francistown. In spite of this, she remained resilient and wrote Chipuku Beer and Independence, a short article about Botswana's Independence Day celebrations. Her luck turned and publishers at Simon & Schuster read A Woman from America and offered her an opportunity to publish her novel, When Rain Clouds Gather, a book about a South African political refugee in a developmental farm in rural Botswana. The book was published in 1969 to much critical acclaim. She then moved from Francistown back to Serowe to protect her son from being bullied in school. In Serowe, however, she received much disdain from the community as they grew suspicious of her newfound fame and money. This led her to have a mental breakdown and she was briefly hospitalized. Soon after, she began to work on her second novel, Maru, which was then published in 1971, a book about tribal prejudice in Botswana. In 1973, she wrote A Question of Power, a mind-bending book about a woman born of an illicit connection between a white woman and a black man under apartheid. In 1977, she attended the prestigious University of Iowa International Writing Program. She continued to write despite her illness and published a number of short stories, including The Collector of Treasures 1977, Serowe, Village of the Rainwind 1981, A Bewitched Crossroad in 1984, and finally Tales of Tenderness, which was published posthumously in 1990. She was granted Botswana citizenship in 1979. She continued living with her son in Serowe until her untimely death from hepatitis on April 17, 1986, at the young age of 49. In 2003, she was awarded the South African Order of Ihamanga in gold for her exceptional contribution to literature and the struggle for social change, freedom, and peace. The Bessie Head Heritage Trust was established in 2007 alongside the Bessie Head Literature Awards. The Library of Pietermaritzburg was renamed the Bessie Head Library in her honor. The Bessie Head papers are stored in the Kama III Memorial Museum in Serowe.